You're not watching me right now. I know that sounds strange. You're looking at the screen, you're hearing words, you feel like you're here, present, awake in this exact moment. But you're not. You're behind, about 80 milliseconds behind. And that might not sound like much, but here's the thing. It means you have never, not once in your entire life, experienced the present moment. Not directly. Every single thing you've ever seen, heard, touched, arrived late, edited, assembled, and handed to you as if it were live. That's not a metaphor. That's not philosophy. That's just what's actually happening inside your head right now. Let's figure out why. Start simple. Light isn't instant. You already know this, probably. The sun is about 93 million miles away, and light takes 8 minutes to make that trip. So when you look up at the sun, which you shouldn't do, but you know what I mean, you're seeing it as it was 8 minutes ago. Not now. 8 minutes ago. The sun could theoretically have done something wild 7 minutes ago, and you'd have no idea yet. You're watching a slightly old broadcast. Go further out. The stars you see at night. Some of them are hundreds of light years away. Thousands. You're not doing stargazing. You're doing archaeology. That light left its source before your grandparents were born. Some of it left before humans existed. You look up and you think you're seeing the universe. You're seeing its history. Now bring that all the way back down, back into your living room. The lamp across the room, the photons bouncing off it and hitting your eye, they left about 1 nanosecond ago. The person sitting next to you, you see them a few nanoseconds delayed. At this scale, it's so small it seems irrelevant. But here's where it stops being irrelevant. The light hits your eye, and the delay, instead of ending there, gets longer, a lot longer, because your eye isn't where you see. Your eye is just the loading dock. Here's what actually happens. A photon hits the back of your eye, the retina. There are these cells back there, photoreceptors, rods and cones, and they convert that photon into an electrical signal. That conversion alone takes a few milliseconds. Then that signal has to travel. It goes down the optic nerve, heading toward the brain. The optic nerve conducts signals at around 120 meters per second. Sounds fast, right? For biology, it is fast. For physics, 120 meters per second is almost embarrassingly slow. Light travels 300 million meters per second. Your optic nerve is doing the equivalent of mailing a letter compared to sending an email. The signal arrives at the back of your head, the visual cortex, and now things get complicated because the brain doesn't process vision as one unified thing. It breaks it apart. Motion is processed in one region, color in another. Edges, depth, faces, context, all different areas, different speeds. Motion signals arrive at conscious awareness faster than color signals, by about 10 to 15 milliseconds, which means, technically, you see something move before you see what color it is. And the brain somehow has to stitch all of this together. It waits, it collects, it assembles. And when it finally has enough pieces to build a coherent, meaningful, full-resolution experience of what just happened, it delivers that to you as now. That process, start to finish, takes somewhere between 50 and 100 milliseconds. On average, about 80. 80 milliseconds. That's the lag. That's the gap between the world as it is and the world as you experience it. Now, I want to be careful here. I just described a pipeline. I named parts. Optic nerve, visual cortex, processing streams. And I want to tell you something Feynman believed deeply. Naming a thing is not the same as understanding it. We know where the signals go. We have fairly good maps of the processing stages. But the moment the signal stops being an electrical pulse and starts being the experience of seeing, that part we don't understand. We'll come back to that because it's the deepest part of this whole story. For now, just hold on to this. The light hits your eye, and 80 milliseconds later, your brain constructs what you think of as the present moment. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. The brain doesn't just delay. If it only delayed, and that'd be odd, but fine. You'd just be a little behind, like watching a stream with slight buffering. What the brain actually does is it lies, beautifully, cleverly, in ways that are almost artistic. Because those 80 milliseconds, your brain hides them completely. You don't experience a lag. You don't notice a gap. You feel like you're watching the world live in real time, seamlessly. How? The brain backdates your experiences. It retroactively time-stamps them to feel like they happened right now, even though right now has already passed. Here's a clean example. There's a phenomenon called the flash lag effect. If you show someone a moving ball and flash a light at the exact moment the ball passes a certain point, the ball and the flash are objectively simultaneous. People perceive the ball as ahead of the flash. The moving object seems to have already moved past where the flash was. Why? Because the brain, knowing the ball is in motion, extrapolates forward. It predicts where the ball will be and stamps that predicted position as the conscious experience. It's not reporting what happened. It's reporting what it expects probably happened. Then there's something called the color-motion simultaneity paradox. Color signals and motion signals arrive at the brain at different times. I mentioned this, motion is faster, but you never notice the color arriving late. It always seems synchronized. That's because the brain holds the faster signal and waits for the slower one, then releases them both stamped as simultaneous. It's doing live editing in real time invisibly. There's also chronostasis. You might have noticed this without knowing the name. When your eyes dart quickly to a clock, the first second seems to take longer than it should, almost like the clock froze for a moment. What's actually happening? Your eyes moved, but during eye movement, you can't take in useful visual information. It's blurry, unstable. So the brain patches over that gap. It uses the first stable image it gets, in this case, the clock, and backfills the gap with that image. It makes the first second look longer because it's pasting the clock image backwards in time to cover the hole. Your brain is an editor, a very good one. It's cutting, patching, synchronizing, and labeling everything with a timestamp that says now, even though now is technically already over. And then there's the most unsettling example of all. A researcher named Benjamin Libet ran a series of experiments in the 1980s. Subjects sat in front of a spinning clock and were told to flex their wrist whenever they wanted, completely freely, no timing required. They had to note exactly when they felt the urge to move. Libet had electrodes on their scalps measuring brain activity. Here's what he found. The brain showed a buildup of electrical activity, called the readiness potential, about 550 milliseconds before the movement. That's expected. Movement takes preparation. But the subjects reported feeling the conscious urge to move about 200 milliseconds before the movement, which means there was 350 milliseconds of brain activity building up, preparing, committing before the person had any conscious experience of deciding to move. The decision, it seems, was made before the decider knew about it. Now, those experiments have been debated, replicated, criticized, refined. Neuroscience is like that, always poking its own findings. But the core observation has held up remarkably well. Your sense of choosing right now may itself be a story your brain tells you after the fact. Even your experience of deciding is possibly backdated. So now you've got a problem. If you're 80 milliseconds behind, if your brain is constructing reality and backdating it and editing the feed, how do you do anything fast? A baseball pitched at 90 miles an hour takes about 400 milliseconds to reach the batter. The batter has to see it, judge its trajectory, decide where it's going, and swing. The swing itself takes 150 to 200 milliseconds to complete. If conscious perception takes 80 milliseconds just to arrive, and then motor commands take time on top of that, the math is impossible. And yet batters hit baseballs regularly, sometimes beautifully. Goalkeepers save penalties. Fighters dodge punches. A tennis player returns a serve at 140 miles an hour. How? The answer is your brain cheats. Specifically, it doesn't wait for conscious perception before starting to act. There's a framework in neuroscience called predictive processing. The brain is not a passive receiver waiting for the world to deliver information and then deciding what to do. It's a prediction machine, constantly generating hypotheses about what's about to happen and acting on those predictions before the perceptual confirmation even arrives. When a batter starts to swing, they're not responding to where the ball is. They're responding to where the brain predicts the ball is going to be. Motor systems get a fast, low-resolution early signal, blurry, rough, incomplete, and they start acting on that. The full conscious experience, sharp, colored, detailed, seamless, arrives later. After the swing has already begun, conscious perception confirms what the body already started doing, which means, and this is the part that keeps me up at night, the conscious you is, in a very real sense, watching yourself in replay. The part of you that acts and the part of you that experiences those actions are not synchronized. The actor and the audience are the same person, but the audience gets the footage slightly after the show. Skilled physical performance isn't conscious processing speeded up. It's the bypassing of conscious processing almost entirely. The expert batter isn't thinking faster than the amateur. Their motor system has learned to act on earlier raw signals and to do it precisely. Years of practice are, in a deep sense, training your brain to act before you know what's happening. Now, I want to stop for a moment because I've told you a lot of facts. I've walked you through a pipeline, showed you some experiments, described some effects with names. And I want to be completely honest with you about what we actually understand and what we don't. We understand the pipeline reasonably well. We know signals travel through optic nerves, get processed in multiple brain areas, get assembled and synchronized and time-stamped. The 80 milliseconds is real. It's measured. It's reproducible. We can nail down the approximate delay with experiments and with brain imaging and with careful behavioral tests. That part and the mechanism we have a decent handle on. What we do not have any handle on, zero, none, genuinely, is why any of it produces experience. I can describe every neuron firing in your visual cortex when you see red. I can tell you which cells activate, which circuits light up, what the timing looks like, what happens if you damage this region or stimulate that one. I can describe the whole mechanical story from photon to neural signal to coordinated pattern of activity in your brain. And I cannot tell you why any of that feels like anything. Why does it feel like something to see red? Why doesn't it all just happen in the dark? Processing, calculating, responding, with no inner experience at all. Plenty of computers process information. Thermostats respond to their environment. We don't imagine they feel anything. What is it about this particular kind of processing that produces this? Whatever this is, that's what the philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness. And he didn't call it that to be dramatic. He called it that because everything else about consciousness, the attention, the memory, the behavior, the neural correlates, those feel like problems we can chip away at. We're making progress. But the question of why there is experience at all, that one doesn't even feel like we've found the right tools to approach it. We've mapped the river beautifully. We have no idea what water is. The 80 milliseconds, that's a number. That's measurable, real, meaningful. The question of who is experiencing those 80 milliseconds, what that who fundamentally is, that's still completely open. And I think it's important to say that clearly, not as a limitation, not as a failing, just as honest accounting of where we are. We know a lot. We understand quite a bit. And the deepest question is still standing, right there at the edge, untouched. So what does all of this actually mean? Not just scientifically, but for you, right now, sitting there watching this. You are watching this screen. The light is leaving these pixels, bouncing into your eyes, traveling down your optic nerve, getting split into processing streams, reassembled, synchronized, time-stamped, and delivered to you as the present moment. The whole process takes about 80 milliseconds. You will never experience it as a delay. You never have. Every moment of your life has felt immediate, direct, live. And none of them were. Think about that. Every memory you have, everything you remember seeing, hearing, feeling, was already a constructed version of the event, already processed, already edited. You've never had raw access to the world. Not once. The first time you saw someone you loved, the moment you heard news that changed your life, the exact instant you thought you decided something important. All of it, assembled, backdated, handed to you smooth and seamless, as if it were happening right now. And here's the strange, quiet thing about that. It hasn't mattered. For survival purposes, for almost everything you've ever needed to do, 80 milliseconds is nothing. Catching food, avoiding danger, driving a car, holding a conversation, all of it works fine with the delay. Evolution didn't need you to be live. It needed you to be close enough. And 80 milliseconds is more than close enough. But now you know, and knowing changes something. When you say, I am here right now, the here is reconstructed. A model built from delayed signals, assembled by a brain that is doing its absolute best to simulate the present moment without ever having direct access to it. When you say, I felt that happen, you felt it about 80 milliseconds after it happened. When you say, I decided to do that, there's genuinely interesting evidence that the deciding started before you knew about it. Is the self you experience a live feed or a highlight reel? I don't know. Nobody does completely. But I'll tell you what I think is the right way to hold this. Not with anxiety, not with some unsettling feeling that you can't trust your own mind. The brain is doing something extraordinary. It's building a coherent, continuous, stable experience of reality from a flood of delayed, fragmented, incomplete signals. And it's doing it so well that you've never once noticed the seams. That's not a flaw. That's genuinely impressive. But it does mean this: the reality you experience is, in a technical and measurable sense, a model, a very good model. The best model that 600 million years of biological evolution has managed to produce. And like every model, it's an approximation. It captures the important things. It misses some things, and it does a few things: the backdating, the gap filling, the prediction, that technically constitute a kind of creative fiction. You live in a reconstruction of the world, 80 milliseconds behind, beautifully edited, delivered with complete confidence by a brain that has never once told you it was doing any of this. And the deepest question, the one that sits at the very bottom of all of this, isn't how long is the delay? That's the easy part. The deepest question is, who is the one experiencing the delay? What is the thing that receives the assembled picture 80 milliseconds late and says, "I see it"? We don't know. Not really. And I think that's the most honest, most interesting place to end up, not with an answer, with a better question. The universe turns out to be stranger than it looks. Not in a mystical way, not in a hand-wavy way, and in a real, specific, measurable way. You're living 80 milliseconds in the past. You always have been. And somehow, that's been exactly enough to build everything we call human experience. But now you know the delay is there. And that changes how you look at the word now.